Joining me to discuss the issue will be Marcus Papadopoulos, publisher and editor with the Politics First from London, and Jason Unruhe, political commentator analyst, joining us from Ontario. Good to see you, gentlemen. Now, Marcus, Hunt is speaking as if this is part of British territory. He has threatened China with consequences if Hong Kong, if human rights are not observed in Hong Kong.
Well, first of all, the strong position adopted by Jeremy Hunt over the protests in Hong Kong has to be seen against the backdrop of the Conservative Party leadership election, which is currently going on in Britain. Mr. Hunt is a contender in that contest, and should he win, he will become the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. So by using these strong words against the Chinese is a way of Mr. Hunt trying to demonstrate to Conservative MPs and to Conservative members that as a Prime Minister, he would be very, very strong, including against a country as powerful as China is. But also we need to understand that Hong Kong was once a British colony. And how did it become a British colony? Well, in a very dark way. The British acquired Hong Kong as a result of the First Opium War, in which the British Empire went to war against China in order to flood the Chinese market with Indian-grown opium and to acquire Chinese territories. And the British were successful in that war. They won the war against China. Hence, they were able to flood the Chinese market with opium, and they acquired Hong Kong. Now, turning to the present, the protests in Hong Kong are not a matter of democracy or freedom. That is not the way you protest. What we have seen in Hong Kong is evidence of marauding gangs who have no respect for the Parliament building in Hong Kong. They have no respect for democracy themselves. And I think it was quite telling how those protesters, once they had entered and ransacked the Parliament building, then unfolded before the eyes of the world Hong Kong's British colonial flag. I think that was very telling. And quite frankly, Hong Kong is a part of China. And what happens in China is no one else's business in the world, including Britain's.
Right. Now, let me ask Jason in Ontario. Jason, is Jeremy Hunt so concerned about, let's say, what he called upholding human rights in Hong Kong, or is he pursuing another agenda?
Well, very clearly, the UK does not respect human rights in any way, shape, or form, and any claim by them that they're concerned that others aren't fulfilling them is frankly hypocritical. The British Empire is probably one of the worst human rights violators that has existed until the creation of the U.S. Empire. So I think that that's completely nonsense. Britain carries out a great deal of inhumanities across the world, almost basically on a daily basis. This is a political move for many of the imperialist powers in the world. In this particular case, given that it is Jeremy Hunt, that it is the UK. What they're trying to do is undermine the domestic situation inside of Hong Kong. No rational person would really be against people who are accused of a crime being held accountable for the crimes that they commit. This is about something else. This is about sowing dissent within Chinese society in order to undermine the social situation inside of China, create a social unrest. Obviously, when you have people coming and damaging buildings and attacking people, acting in a generally violent way, the police are going to come in and shut it down. And then the Western media, the imperialist media, can then turn around and look at the police actions and then claim that there's human rights abuses going on. I mean, so it's very clear that this is not only just a propaganda op by the imperialist powers, but this is a very deliberate plot particularly with the use of organizations such as the National Endowment for Democracy, which does operate in Hong Kong, which is used by the U.S. government to interfere in domestic politics of other countries, to simply sow dissent within Hong Kong society in order to try to destabilize it as a means of undermining and attacking China.
Okay. And Marcus, one brief question, and that is China has also responded and snapped back and said, threatened with, actually first they said that this is wrong, they should stop making wrong remarks, and then said that they would take serious measures if this interference continues. What kind of measures could they be?
Well, China is today an extremely powerful country, politically, economically, and militarily. And of course, the trade between China and Britain is enormous. And should China take any economic actions, then that will be very detrimental to the UK economy. So I think the British have to be very cautious in how they speak to the Chinese. But let me just add this. The day I listen to a British politician talking about human rights and the need to protect human rights will be the day that Britain comes to terms and apologises for the various genocides that the British Empire committed. For example, the British genocide against the Native Americans, the British genocide against the Aborigines, the British genocide against the Irish. I'm not going to listen to British politicians and to British journalists lecturing the world about human rights when Britain has committed some of the most heinous genocides in history. Indeed, the British establishment, its politicians and its journalists are genocide deniers because they deny the various genocides that the wretched and diabolical British Empire committed.
Okay. All right, unfortunately, we're out of time. I got to thank our guests. We had Marcus Papadopoulos, publisher and editor for the Politics First from London, and Jason Unruhe, political commentator and analyst from Ontario. And that's the end of this news review. Thank you for watching.